I'm here at Raindance with filmmaker Josh Leake. We're talking about his short film Empties, which is about people who collect empty bottles as their main source of financial income. Now, you're from Portland, Oregon, which was the first state in the US, according to your commentary on the DVD, which was very nicely provided for us, so thanks for that. In 1971, they started this recycling scheme. And I find it interesting that it was Portland who did this, because in many films and literature, Portland is always portrayed as this kind of down and out kind of mecca for hobos and homeless people. Is that because it has a larger homeless population in your experience?
Well, I was born and raised in Portland, so I guess I should say that. So I will always have a love for Portland, and you know, there are a lot of people that say Portland is where 24-year-olds go to retire. So there are a lot of people that aren't necessarily working in Portland, but they survive because there's a lot of things like the bottle bill. And actually, Portland didn't start the bottle bill, it was Oregon. So, and you know, from day one, we saw a success. In 1971, 53% of on-street trash was beverage containers, bottles, cans, and so forth. And in 1972, the first year they actually initiated the bottle return bill, that dropped down to like 6%. And currently in 2010, which was the last numbers I saw, it's less than 1% of on-street trash is beverage containers. So that's a huge reduction. And things that happen in the 70s, people that ride bikes, if they go over a glass bottle that's been broken, I mean, you know, a lot of bad things can happen with cans and so forth being in the streets. So having the bottle bill not only helps people that are homeless or, you know, looking for a really the lowest common denominator of the job, but, you know, it also is good for the environment. So
it sounds to me like you're really well researched. Was a lot of that due to this film, or was this just stuff that you knew beforehand?
Well, you know, it's kind of a funny story how I actually came up with doing the documentary. People always laugh. I have an addiction. It's not alcohol or drugs, but I like to buy domain names. I don't know if you know what those are.
Right. Yeah.
And I own like 1,000 domain names. And
tell us some of your favorites.
Just some of my favorites. Well, I had an oil company contact me recently about one of my domain names. They wanted to buy fuelwise.com. They felt that was a good marketing name that they could use, so it was kind of neat. And I've actually only sold one domain name in my life, and that was to a famous attorney in the U.S. you maybe have heard of, Johnny Cochran.
Yes.
He's since passed away, but
mentioned in The Big Lebowski, actually.
Yeah. So, and the domain name I sold to him was murderattorney.com. So, which is kind of funny.
So maybe that's inspiration for your second documentary, perhaps. Domain collectors. You've done, you know.
Yeah, actually, I've thought about that.
Logical step.
I've thought about that. So, and I have a domain name for it, and it's historyofthe.com. So I don't know.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll see that next year here.
Yeah,
so that would be great.
That would be fun.
So you were saying about how you had come up with the story for this.
Yeah. So I was buying a whole bunch of domain names, and what I usually do is I go out to people. Unfortunately, go through bankruptcy and so forth, and they own things, and they have to be liquidated. So it's a way you can buy things, and that's usually how I buy a lot of domain names. Is I'll go out and look through bankruptcy proceedings and look for assets. And I saw a list of domain names, and Empties was one of them. And I think it might have been a band at some point or something like that, but I looked at the domain name and I was like, you know, that reminds me of empty cans. And I think, you know, I see those people that collect beverage containers every day, they must have a story. And I've never seen a documentary about them. And when I actually went out and started to meet people, I was surprised that, you know, they're just regular human beings that sometimes are just, you know, on hard times. So, and hopefully that comes across in the film.
Well, we have 4 principal characters, which is Ernie, Tim, Joe, and Jenna. And I think interestingly, Joe is of the quartet. You know, he's not homeless. And was this important for you to show this aspect that, you know, not all of these avid collectors are necessarily on the streets?
You know, and how I found these people is, and was I went to a regular grocery store, and in England you don't have it, but in the US, at least in Oregon, not every state's the same, so every state may or may not have the bottle bill. In Oregon we do, and like it says in the film, it's worth about $86 million a year. If you go to like a Tesco, a grocery store, and usually there's a section where there'll be a machine that you basically put your cans or plastic bottles or glass bottles in, and you'll get a little piece of paper, and it says, "We owe you $50 or whatever," and then you take it in, you get your money, and you go. So and that's actually where I met everyone. I hung out at the bottle return place for like 3 weeks. I had headphones on, a little Sennheiser mic and a recorder, and I basically went up to everyone that was returning cans, and I said, "So did you drink everything?" And if they said, "Yeah, I drank everything," then I knew that they just loved to drink, and they probably weren't the people that I wanted to talk to. But if they said no, I actually went out looking for it. Then I sat down and I interviewed him. In fact, Joe, the gentleman you mentioned who isn't homeless, I interviewed him for about 15 minutes. He was really nice. He actually sang. He was a funny character. And then when we were done with the interview, he was done returning his cans. He kind of went down and he picked up this cane. And at that point I realized that he was blind. And I was like, wow, you're blind and you return bottles. How do you find bottles and cans when you're blind? And we kind of talked a little bit about it, but he has family and friends that work at big federal buildings, with like 1,000 people in it. And he basically has worked out with the janitor staff that he comes and picks the cans up from all these federal buildings. So all he does is, takes 2 or 3 huge bags of cans to the bottle return each, couple days. And so it was an interesting experience.
He's actually quite lucky in that respect, in that he doesn't have to scavenge as we see other characters, out on the street doing this. And I'm wondering, in the case of Joe and also the people out on the street, how much money can one feasibly make, let's say, per week if you're doing this full time, and also the fact that you know what you're doing and you know where to look?
Yeah, and most people were pretty smart. They would call the city of Portland, and the city determines when garbages get picked up, and they'd find out the garbage plan for each neighborhood, and they'd know that if the garbage had to be there at 6 a.m., people tend to put it out at like 7 or 8, and then they'd go around at that time to get the cans out of the people's garbages. So yeah, and there were some people that didn't make it into the film that were just absolutely geniuses. They'd go to bars and they'd negotiate with bar owners, and they'd say we'd split it, and they'd end up coming with truckfuls of cans and bottles. I mean, it was amazing. But the people that were really innovative didn't want to be in the film because they didn't want people to steal their ideas. So there were some people that had some mental issues, but I didn't really think that was. I mean, there's mental issues everywhere. I mean, every field, anything. And really, what I wanted to show with this film is that they were just like you and I, and that instead of just kind of ignoring them and make them feel as subhuman, that we should really empathize with them, and because they're doing a good thing for the environment.
Absolutely. So you talked about the fact that you interviewed obviously quite a few people. I'm wondering how many in total. Were you ever apprehensive about approaching these people, and how did you go about gaining their trust?
Well, I was really lucky. First of all, I was an only child, so I always had to make my own fun. So approaching the people was really easy. And I actually made a little business card that said recycling documentary, and with my phone number and my email. And I felt, instead of saying I'm doing a documentary about bottles and that who would really be against a recycling documentary? I don't think there's anyone in the world that would be against recycling. So it was kind of the trust thing. I mean, I had a business card,
That's quite funny though, isn't it, giving a business card to people on the street?
But what was funny is that I said, give me a call, let's set something up, I'll buy you lunch, I'll interview you, and then I'll follow you, while you're doing your canning, is what they call it. It's funny, even a month or so after I was done with my documentary, I still had people calling me saying, I'm ready to go out, I'm ready to go out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's over. And they're like, oh, so, it was kind of funny.
Well, at 9 minutes, and you do pack a lot into that running time, but it seems there are so many stories to tell. out in these streets, and like we said, they're not all homeless, you know, and they come from all different walks of life, and we do hear some of those backstories. Were there any characters in particular you were very sad to see not make the cut? You talked about some of their genius exploits
yeah, there was a lady that I really liked, and she drove around on a moped, and she had like 3 shopping carts that she fashioned behind her moped, and she wore like an MTV astronaut hat. She was just an awesome character, but I didn't think she really would have helped audiences to empathize with her. I think that they would have maybe alienated audiences a little bit.
Yeah, they would have said crazy
lady. There was another gentleman that I interviewed, and you do actually see him when Joe's returning his cans, that decided he didn't want to do it. So I had great footage on him. He was in the film, and he said he just didn't want to do it. And, you know, I respect that. If you don't want it, I can understand. It was unfortunate that he didn't come to that conclusion before I spent all the time interviewing and following him, but you know, it's hard to make that decision sometimes. Yeah, there's just so many funny stories, and you know, Ernie, we were out really late at night, and we saw Hit and Run, and we tried to chase the car on our bikes, but he was too fast. But we thought that was pretty crazy. Weird things happen really late at night, and actually a cab driver kind of tried to accost us, Ernie and I, and then I was like, really, what are you doing here? Like, he wanted to try to run us over, and you know, then he opened his door and he got out like he was going to attack us or something like that, and I was like, really? I pulled out my cell phone and I said, do you really want me to call 911? And then he drove off. But it was really like,
Jesus.
I know. Late at night, I feel there's a lot of crazies out sometimes, but
taxi driver.
Yeah, you got to watch out for them.
Yeah.
Even in Portland.
So, can you tell us about? I noticed in the credits that you thank and credit the Northwest documentary program.
Yeah.
I know nothing about that.
Okay.
And I'm wondering how instrumental they were in getting the film made.
Yeah.
And helping you find equipment.
They were integral.
Things that you need.
Well, it was funny. The equipment I used pretty much all my own. But Northwest Documentary has a class that I took, and it basically prepares you and helps you make a documentary. So they were integral into this, actually. And one person in particular, Jay Cornelius, who I think I credit as my executive producer, was the teacher, and he's just an amazing guy. He even made the Blu-ray for the showing here at Raindance, which is really nice. So thanks, Jay. But he, is an accomplished National Geographic, and he's just amazing. Northwest Documentary is basically a upstart nonprofit in Portland that gives people the tools to be able to make documentaries. So I've always had a love for film, but Northwest Documentary really is a place that's got computers and equipment if you need it. Although I use my own equipment for the film. So.
You have your Raindance screening tomorrow, I believe, and I'm wondering actually what the reaction to this might be, being that we don't, as we've already mentioned, we don't have this kind of recycling program, and I myself am very much aware of it, having lived in New York, and would certainly help the people out on the streets here. So how do you think the reaction to that might be, and will you get a chance to maybe talk to audiences?
Well, Raindance is such a great film festival. Last night I received an email from Marion, and she said they're actually doubling our screen size. So we went from 59 to 125. So I think the film festivals, I know, I was really excited about that. I think the film festival's been very supportive, and it's been an amazing experience that I think we're going to do well. And you have to remember that, from at least what people have been telling me, is that England at one point did have a bottle return bill 20 years ago. So older people will probably remember what that's like. I don't know if Donald Sumter, who was here a couple days ago, he's in Game of Thrones. He, well-known actor. I spoke with him actually about the bottle return, and he said, yeah, he remembered as a kid that he would go and pick up bottles and take them back for money and buy gum and stuff like that. So it was kind of a neat little thing that he shared with me. So
it does make you wonder where it went, though.
Well, it's interesting because I'm trying to make this into a feature, which I'm going to work on. I'm actually going to LA next month, or actually later this month, it's October, to work on that, and that's going to be part of it. I have a little Michael Moore kind of, you know, conspiracy thing that's going on, that there's a lot of interests out there that don't want the bottle return bill because it adds money to their products, which, you know, I mean, I can understand. So, but if you look at the states in general, New York has a bottle bill, and in New York, that's $500 million to $1 billion a year of money. That's a lot of money. Oregon, $86 million. So we're almost 1/10 of what New York is. And the only thing with New York, though, is they only recycle like 56%. So all that extra money goes to the state. Half of it goes to the state of New York. So it's a lot of money.
A lot of money floating around that's not been picked up.
Yeah. So.
And finally, you're in a shorts program. We should mention that you know, you're in amongst, I don't know how many other
I think
shorts.
there's 3 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 others.
Yeah,
so
I'm wondering if you've had a chance to meet any of the other filmmakers here, or if you've seen any of those films, because I know I met you a week ago when I was doing a Q&A for Strings. And you've been here for pretty much the whole run.
I
so
have.
Not only the shorts, but, you know, tell us about
Features.
what you saw and what you were excited about.
Well,
documentaries.
you know, the film you mentioned, Strings, amazing. Rob Savage. I mean, he was 18 years old when he did that film. I mean, I don't remember what I was doing when I was 18, but I sure wasn't in. I didn't have the ability to do that, so it's very admirable.
Yeah, he's pretty inspirational.
A lot of great films. Another one of the shorts that I really liked. I went to high school in Germany, so I speak German. Was Die Alte Frau. Was a really good. It was just amazingly rich. Another one that I enjoyed was, I got a preview of 15 Meters, which was done by a friend of mine, Alan, who I've met here, and he was in Haiti, stationed with them. He works for the Mexican government, so he's a diplomat for the Mexicans, and he was stationed in Haiti during the big water, you know, the big issue that happened there recently, and he did a really cool short film called 15 Meters, where he starts out at an expensive hotel and walks 15 meters into just, you know, it's shocking. I also enjoyed, and there's just been so many films that I've liked, that I've enjoyed. Oriana was really interesting, about the Afrikaner, and that's up for a best documentary. Trying to think what else I really liked. Mon Ami, which I think you can see today. I'm not sure. That was probably one of the best films. I didn't get a chance to meet the director, but it was just a great comedy.
I hope the viewers are taking note of your picks.
Yeah.
It seems that you've been fairly comprehensive in this program. It's a great effort.
Yeah, and there's still some good films coming up. I think The Separation by Megan Sosa.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Okay Good as well.
Yeah, Okay Good.
So quite a few things.
And then I love zombies, and there's like a zombie movie later today at 8:15, so that should be kind of interesting.
It's great. So, you know, you're like a pig in shit, basically.
Yeah, you know, and I could say that it was such an honor to be selected to be in Raindance. Elliot Grove is just such a nice guy, and is very gracious and been very friendly. You know, getting in was an honor, but meeting all the filmmakers and watching all the films has been an amazing experience. So I really need to make sure I can make something once a year to submit. Hopefully it's good enough to get in, but yeah, this has been just an amazing experience.
Well, I for one will be wanting to see the feature film, and hopefully many more characters this time around, and like you said, conspiratorial intrigue. I look forward to that, but I wanted to end on this. I don't know if you can see this. It's a rather ingenious marketing tool. Was this a last minute inspiration that you had? Tell us about this.
Well,
and what you've been doing with these cans that have cans of Coke that have filmmaker contacts.
Well, we started out by actually giving Coke's cans to people to have them drink them so that we could have empty cans, but then the cleaning staff would go through and throw them away. So we decided to just, you know, put them in full cans, and I guess I'm honored in the sense that we put out about 24 to 36 each day, and they disappear. They're not there by the morning. So I think people are drinking them and looking at it, and hopefully they're recycling. But we're going to put out probably 50 or 60 of them.
These are going to be out in force today and for the
today and Saturday, tomorrow, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been good to meet you.
And if you're drinking one of these bad boys, please recycle it at the end and go and see Empties. It's fantastic. Cheers.
Thank you. Playing 5:45 tomorrow, Apollo Cinemas in Piccadilly Circus. part of the Raindance Film Festival.